How it do, Kale Crew? Josh back here again with another deck profile. This time we're doing an update on Infernoids, or to be more specific, Lair Infernoids featuring Slash Draw. So let's get started. We're going to start with the main deck. Alright, to start off, double Anunku. Pretty basic. As everyone knows, this one here is our Rageki. Actually, to be more precise, Dark Hole. Destroys all monsters in the field other than itself. Deviati. Deviati is our Heavy Storm. Destroys all spell and trap cards that are not void cards. Both of these also have negate effects. Anunku is a spell and trap card negate, and then the Deviati is a effect monster negate. They both have to tribute one monster in the field in order to do this. Can be themselves or it can be another monster. Tondel. Tondel is my double attacker. If he attacks into a monster and destroys it and sends it to the graveyard, he can attack again. He also has a DD Crow effect. 2 Sightsmiths. If Sightsmith attacks into a monster and destroys it, it can banish one card in the field, and that is a non-targeting banishment, making him one of the best Noids that we run. Also has a DD Crow effect. Sijet. Sijet's effect is not really used that much, but it's okay. Basically, if it were to declare an attack, you can activate its effect, which allows you to banish one card from your opponent's extra deck, but it's their choice. And it also has DD Crow effect. We really only run it so that we can use it with Void Feast, so we can do double Decatron and Sijet to complete the 8. 2 Petrulia. Petrulia's effect is to pop a spell or trap card in the field. Should it do this, it cannot attack that turn. And then it also has a DD Crow effect, but its DD Crow effect is only usable during your opponent's turn, unlike its larger counterparts, which can be used during both players' turns. Harmadic. Harmadic pops a monster, and also has a DD Crow effect. Decatron, probably the MVP of the Noids. Basically, when it's normal or special summoned, you can send one Noid from your deck to the graveyard. It gains level as well as its ability. It's our tuner, so it gives us our synchro plays, and it's also used for our Void Feast plays. That's all the Infernoids. Moving on to the Lair monsters. In this particular build, I only run Arima. Triple Arima. It's our terraforming to look for our Lair of Darkness. It also is able to tribute itself to draw one card, or it can tribute itself to search for, Diabolos, but I don't run Diabolos in this build. If you have Lair on the field, of course, it can tribute someone else's monsters. So that's all the Lair monsters. Moving on to hand traps. The only hand trap I run is Gamma. And the reason behind just running Gamma is I run, mill cards, specifically Reasoning and Monster Gate. And to run Ash and Droll and all that other stuff, while they're good cards, they interfere with my milling. They also tend to clog up my hand, so I can't do my combos. So the version where I just run Gamma and one driver has been better for me. I mean, I do hit him a lot, but that's not such a bad thing because that's a normal monster, which means it doesn't go to my summoning limit. I've OTK'd, using him before, so it's not that bad. That's all the monsters. We're going to move on to spells. So triple Lair of Darkness. You guys all know what this does. This one here makes everything on the field dark, and also makes it so that if I needed to tribute for a tribute effect, I can tribute my opponent's monster once per turn. Void Imagination. Void Imagination is the Void card where if your opponent has an extra deck monster and you don't, you can activate this, send it to the graveyard, and then it will special summon basically Tiara. It's used for your Tiara plays, of course. It has a secondary effect where if you activate it on field, all of your Noids will go to level 1, which means that your summoning restriction will be, not as bad. So you can summon more than just, the 2 monsters. You can probably do up to 4 or 5, depending on what you have. However, all of them only do half damage. Triple Void Vanishment. This is our searcher, can search for any of our void cards, so we use it for Imagination or Feast usually. And this is our feature card. This is something that I've been testing and I've been liking, called Slash Draw. So the way this works is it's really best going second, to be honest. When your opponent has a board set up, you get to mill one card for every card that your opponent has on the field. Then you get to draw one card. Now, if the card you draw happens to be another slash draw, and they have enough cards in the field, you can pretty much OTK them, because it's going to burn them for 2,000 for every one of their cards that they have on the field. It's unlikely for it to happen, but that's not why I run it. I run it because of the draw effect and the recycle effect, which I'm going to get into now. So the recycle effect, however many cards you mill to the graveyard is the amount of cards you're going to put back into the extra deck. So if you already have an established graveyard, this is great because you can send back all the spells and traps and leave the Noids behind, making your graveyard more useful. Yeah. Moving on to our one-ofs. One Monster Gate for the mills, obviously. Because this is a Lair Darkness build, I can also tribute my opponent's monsters. That's always good. 1-for-1 to get to a Decatron faster. Reasoning, mills. Stopped running this for a while during the time of That Grass Looks Greener. Rest in peace. But I've been liking it recently because, you know, it's a more of a controlled variant, I guess, of Infernoids, but, you know, we still need the mills. Monster Reborn. I mean, we can only really reborn Decatron and my Lair monsters, but sometimes we can reborn something from the opponent, and it always makes it worth it. That's all the spells going into traps. The only traps that we are running is Double Void Feast. So, for anyone that doesn't know, Void Feast will special summon Infernoids up to a total level of 8. So usually what we do is we do 2 Decatron, which are both 1s, and then we do a Sajet. So it's a double negate board, basically. The other options you would have would be to do just 1 Anunku and a Sightsmith, which would be a single negate with a big monster. You can also do 1 Decatron, 1 Harmodic, and 1 Patrulia if you just need the bodies on the field. And that's it for the main deck, folks. We're going to go on to the extra deck. So, starting off with our fusions. Infernoid Tiara, the queen of the deck. So, this one here is the one you bring off of Void Imagination. Her effect is an on-summon effect. She has several effects, actually. The one that we use the most is when we send 6, which is the amount that we use for Void Imagination. So we send 3 from me and the opponent send 3 from the top of the decks to the graveyard, and then we send 3 from the extra deck to the graveyard. And what we tend to use for that particular part are these babies. Elder Entity to Tis. So this one here, when it hits the graveyard from the extra deck, I can pop 1 card in the field. I usually use her to clear the opponent's field. It can even possibly lead to an OTK depending on what I have. Usually what I do is I pop 2 of my opponent's cards, and then usually I use the last one to pop Tiara. Because while Tiara is big, that's all she really does, and she actually locks up my field from being able to summon more Noids, so I usually pop her away. Moving on to the Synchro. Beals. Lair of Darkness makes Beals able to be summoned in this deck, and it's a tank, and I love running it. Not everyone runs it, but I personally love it. Cypher Lord Omega. I think we all miss the days when we could double Omega, with the simple, with just an instant fusion and the other Elder Entity. But nowadays we can pretty much go into 1, so I like to run it at 1. Good for interruption, good for recycling Noids back into the graveyard. Dark Strike Fighter. This one here is another monster that I use more with Lair of Darkness on the field. It allows me to tribute and burn. So basically, if I tribute the opponent's monster or even my own monster, for every level on him, your opponent will lose 200 life points. So it's good for, time, or just, when you're just trying to kind of push for game. Moving on to Lynx. Decode Talker, good for OTKs. I like to go into him right after I do a feast play, assuming like they just pass turn, because I have the 3 monsters right there. You summon him, then you summon 2 more, and you OTK if you can. Proxy Dragon, gotta do it. Underclock Taker, standard. Doolittle Chimera, good for OTKs. This is my other one other than Decode Talker. This one here, probably my favorite play to do with this one is right after I Imagination and use Tiara. As long as I have another monster that I can normal summon, and then I can link for him, and then summon 2 other monsters, and OTK that way. Master King Archifiend, he's good for when Lair of Darkness is on the field and nothing is a fire, so I can't go into Doolittle. I can OTK with him as well. It's just not as for sure. You know what I mean? Nightmare Cerebus. This one here, you know, Nightmare Engine. I don't run the full engine. I just run him and one other. Just basically for popping monsters. And finally, one more. Nightmare Phoenix for popping back row. And the last one is a Link Spider. Why? Because we make tokens. Lair tokens. So I put the Link Spider in there just in case I need a little extra boost for my attacks, and just to make them more useful. And that's it for the deck profile, guys. Well, actually, no, I take that back. We still have our side deck. So, side deck. We run Kaijus. 1 Doggeron, 1 Humongous, 1 Gamma-Seal, and 1 Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. A lot of problem cards out there nowadays, you know, and a lot of boards that are like impossible to break. So, you know, if you have a Kaiju, all you got to do is get rid of the one that's linking them all together, and you can get rid of a Nightmare board. Good for other things as well, obviously. Slumber is just, you know, a board clearer. Always good to have. You know, we can't run 3 Regeki or 3 Dark Holes, so we gotta put in Kaiju Slumber. Speaking of board clearers, Dark Hole, Regeki, standard. For the last of our spells, we run triple Shared Ride. So I like to run Shared Ride because there's a lot of searching in this format. So this is kind of like the max C, if you will, of this format, you know. So they want to keep searching, well, I will keep drawing. Then we have Traps. Triple Curse Seal of Forbidden Spell. I like this card because there's a lot of power spells in this format. So, you know, if someone goes to, let's say, engage, I activate this, discard a spell from my hand, and they can no longer activate that particular spell card for the rest of the game. Or not the game, for the rest of the for the rest of the game. Which can be pretty detrimental to some decks. And last but not least, triple Anti-Spell Fragrance. While pendulums are not as popular as they once were, this guy still really slows down a lot of the decks in the format, mainly Sky Strikers, anything that uses a whole bunch of spells, honestly. Alright guys, that's going to be it. Thanks for tuning in again. Be sure to like, subscribe, and if you guys have any thoughts, opinions, gestures, go ahead and put them right in the comments, guys. I read all the comments. Have a great day, and aloha.